Okay, welcome everybody once again. This is Hebrews 10 Ministry. Thank you all for joining us. This is my buddy Dustin. He is back, and we are talking about Stoicism, the Christian form of Stoicism. Stoicism is a school of Hellenistic philosophy that flourished throughout the Roman and Greek world until the 3rd century AD. Stoicism is predominantly a philosophy of personal ethics, which is informed by its system of logic. Big word in Stoicism. It's logical thinking. It's not emotionally driven. And its views on the natural world. Reasons for being stoic. Many reasons to be stoic. Neuroticism is defined as this. Individuals with neuroticism are more likely than average to be moody and to experience such feelings as anxiety, worry, fear, anger, frustration, envy, jealousy, guilt, depression, and loneliness. Now, we all have some of these afflictions, but here are some of the stressors of them. Overcrowding, it's a big one. I know personally some family members, as well as myself, I used to suffer from that. Daily stress events such as traffic, you get angry in traffic, lost keys, money, quality and quantity of physical activity, life changes like divorce, bereavement, workplace stressors, or life changes such as even just breaking up with someone. Now that can happen. Workplace stressors, if you hate your job, or if it's a very demanding job, or if you work around certain people that just aren't cool to work around. Repeated or sustained exertions, extreme postures, chemical stressors such as drugs, alcohol, tobacco. Societal and family demands are also social stressors. So these are a few reasons if you suffer from any of these ailments, these are some of the reasons to be stoic. How much better is it to get wisdom than gold, and to get understanding rather to be chosen than silver? A lack of control. If you find Dustin, he kind of caught me in this kind of stressful position, what was that, 2 weeks ago, something like that? Yeah. He's kind of saying I was triggered by life's chaos, and it just threw me off, and Dustin actually brought it to light. He says, it kind of looks like you have a problem with not having control,
And the only reason I recognize it in you is because I had seen it myself.
Oh, yeah.
And someone pointed it out to me.
The main premise of Stoicism is that a lot of people liken it to a cow standing out in the rain and not caring, and they see it as apathy, like a person who's indifferent to their surroundings.
It's not important enough to bother.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And I don't view Stoicism as that from my research, not at all. Stoicism is taking in everything that's around you. You know what's happening. You are very aware that the world is in chaos, yet you have it in the back of your mind that there are ways out. You have contentment even in the midst, and it's a very deep concept. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled over Rome, he became a Stoic, and he lost a lot of his children. Now, a child dying can be the most hurtful thing. I mean, it's got to be like probably the most painful thing that can ever happen to you is losing a child. Well, he lost many children, and he wrote about it, and that became the Meditations. The Stoic philosophy is not easy to take on. It never is. I've actually been trying to incorporate it into my life ever since you brought it to light. Well, whenever I was 12, I remember my dad. He came in, and this is very personal. I've never told really anybody this, especially publicly, but he came in and he sat down at the kitchen table one day, and I was about 12 or 13, and he had just got back from the doctor's visit. And if you know Dad, he's a big jokester. Dad sits down, and somebody said at the table, I can't remember if it was my sister or my mom, they said, "Well, Steve, what did the doctor say?" And he said, "I'm just hanging by a thread," word for word. Never will forget that. Hanging by a thread. And ever since then, every time that I hear somebody say hanging by a thread, that takes me back to whenever I was 12 years old. That was the first time that death of my parents ever settled into me. I never will forget that. That traumatized me. I remember I had basketball practice like that night or the next day, and I remember I went into the bathroom and I cried over it. And so, I mean, that was, and I kept crying. I remember I came back home and I just kept, and I remember I would watch my dad out the window and I would see him walk into the barn and stuff. And I remember just thinking, my dad's going to die, you know? I mean, so it's a traumatic thing to think about losing a parent or a child or something. So Stoicism, it's not as if it puts it into perspective, because you can gain perspective without being a Stoic. But it puts it into perspective, and it also gives you other options to go about it. It shows you that there are ways out of it. Now, the old Stoics, like me and you said, Seneca the Younger actually made the comment of, hey, if you find no light at the end of the tunnel, basically, then just turn over and cut your wrist, you know, and kill yourself. Now, that's not what we're teaching.
That's extreme.
Yes, that's very, very extreme. No, this is the Christian form of Stoicism. The old Stoics did not like the ideal of hope. You know, they didn't like any kind of hope. They were all about logic. Everything's logic. Well, is this really as bad as it seems? You know, it's even if the worst happened, they always looked at the worst case scenario. Well, you know, that's usually what will trigger people. Michel de Montaigne. I got it. But he said that my life has been filled with many hardships, most of which never happened. You know, so we think about these things and it triggers that anxiety. Mm-hmm. But they don't ever hardly happen. I mean, 99% of the time, the worst things that we believe will happen never do occur. Let's just say there's bullies at work that you have to deal with. Somebody's a pain in your side. I've had to deal with these. And I always thought, oh man, life is just so miserable, you know. It's so terrible. But the Stoic doesn't look at it like that. He says, I'm going to get another job. I'm done. Me and you, Dust, we was talking about dating a cheater. Mm-hmm. Now, whenever you're dating a cheater, so many people want to hang on.
You know, in that situation, you know, say you are with someone who cheats, obviously it's a betrayal of trust. It's a betrayal of the commitment you've made to each other. Yeah. And a lot of people will hang on and they'll forgive. And don't get me wrong, we are to forgive trespasses against us. Right. But in that situation, a Stoic knows what they bring to the table. They know what their commitment is worth. Right. If it's apparent that the other party does not recognize what the Stoic brings, right, then a lot of times a Stoic will just end a relationship.
How would you think that a Stoic would respond to somebody whom they thought was cheating, whom they didn't have direct evidence? Do you think that a Stoic would confront them, that a Stoic's more likely to confront? That bit because Stoics are known for facing that problem.
It really depends. If you have I will say a more traditional or a more general Stoic, then they will confront.
Yeah. Well, and it seems as though a Stoic will wait until the evidence is presented. You know, a Stoic's not just going to go off of a mere, you know what I'm saying, like an assumption. They're going to wait until they either catch them in the act or the partner admits to doing it. A lot of Stoics are content with just being alone. Socrates was actually the one that was the inspiration for Stoicism. And he's just a brilliant, brilliant mind. He was very content with what he had. And that's a big thing in materialist countries like the U.S. We've been just, you know, bombarded by this constant need for materials and wealth, the American dream, fast food, everything. Stoics shield against all of that.
Be as you wish to seem, Socrates.
So be as you wish to seem. Stoicism, it's advantageous to the public speaker, to the preacher, to the teacher, to the go-to guy, to the leader, to the manager, to the supervisor, even to the parents, to the older of the siblings and the hierarchy.
Anyone with authority or is sought after for clarity and understanding, wisdom.
Right.
A staple of a Stoic is confidence.
Yeah.
It's hard for Stoics actually to relate to people who are very, very bipolar, up and down a lot, because you don't really look and you don't understand. Because when the evidence is presented in front of a Stoic, they can look at it and say, okay, these are the three options.
Right.
This is it.
They're logical.
Yeah, I mean, and they lay them out right there. There's three in front of them, which is going to be the best in the situation, have more pros than cons. Where someone who is very up and down emotionally, they don't have three choices. They have about 33 or 330.
Do you believe that it's easier for a man to be a Stoic? With a man, see, women are more emotionally driven individuals, and for good reason. You know, that's a necessity. There has to be a balance in nature. But with men, we are generally the more logical thinkers.
Well, our gender role is that women are emotionally driven and men are logically driven.
Right.
And there are pros and cons to both of those.
Right.
I will not be one to say that one is better than the other.
No.
By no means.
No.
Because depending on the situation, one or the other is needed.
Right. Yeah, but also you got to think with a mama, children need an emotional guide. They need someone who is emotionally driven, you know. And if a mother just always uses that stalwart, you know, logic on them, then that may do them a disservice. There are certain spots of life where Stoicism may not be as beneficial. Another good reason to be Stoic is if you are blameless. If you're not guilty in certain situations, if you actually go out of your way to avoid, let's say, talking about someone behind their backs. If you go out of your way to not cheat someone out of money, if you go out of your way to be faithful to your partner, then it's good to be Stoic just in case you are accused of it.
There's an old movie, it was Abbott and Costello, and it was Jack and the Beanstalk, Abbott and Costello.
I remember that.
You remember that?
Yeah.
Okay, well there's a song that Costello sings in the beginning. He says, "I fear nothing when I'm in the right."
I remember this.
Yeah. And that is so profound if you think about it.
If you do appear attractive in public, let's just say that you're an attractive individual, then being Stoic could create disciplines that could kind of ward away temptations, because we are, for the most part, creatures of opportunity. And whenever those doors open, then that could lead you into a whole lot of mess. You know, we're talking about STDs, pregnancies, jail time, murder, and all this. You know, it just branches out. It's the ripple effect. I've talked about that. But anyway, let's just say that you're unattractive. Yeah, I know that's not a very popular one. Yeah, no, I'm not talking to you. But unattractive. Being Stoic gives a shield against criticisms and or low self-esteem. A whole lot of people, you know, kill themselves over low self-esteem.
Growing up a big kid, I know that self-esteem is a big thing. The reason that self-esteem plays so much on us is where you find your validation.
Right.
And if you find your validation in what other people say you are or think you are.
Yeah.
I grew up as, in my family, I was the know-it-all. All right, because anytime any situation would come up, if I knew anything about it, whether I had read about it, whether I'd heard about it, whether I knew someone who was in a situation similar, any information I had about it, I would throw it out. Didn't matter if I was just a bystander in the situation, didn't matter if I was, you know, half of the situation. Well, I got the reputation of being a know-it-all, to the point I actually got a shirt on Christmas from my family, you know, the family know-it-all.
Yeah.
The reason I did that is because I desperately sought validation. I wasn't trying to seem like I was better than anyone. I desperately sought validation from my family to go, good job.
As did I.
Yeah, and a lot of kids do. A lot of adults do as well.
Right.
When I stopped finding my validation from my family and actually started looking for my validation from God, my validation of life, my validation of me being here, was to further God's kingdom.
Right.
I stopped being a know-it-all because it didn't matter. As a matter of fact, when situations come up, and I did have a little knowledge on it, not to the point of hindering the situation by not telling, but I actually would hold it to myself. If people would ask and I said, well, what do you think? I don't know.
Popular, if you're popular. It can fight against low self-esteem, but also against the temptations or the forces that popularity brings about. Being stoic maintains inward order in the storm of life. If you're unpopular by reasons of ill repute, okay? Now, most people are unpopular, but I'm talking about if you're hated by society for something that may have occurred or something that was said about you in the past. Being stoic staves off emotional detriment brought on by public scorn. You know, I mean, it actually, it can bring that peace back. Addicts can benefit from being stoic. You know, if you're on drugs, substances, even pornography, alcoholism, whatever it may be, stoics can find contentment within that chaos. Okay, because that is an inward chaos coming from a former, still an addict. You know, but I'm not on any kind of substances at the moment, but I'll always have that beast within me. Anyway, infatuation, being enamored with any individual, be it a girl with a guy or a guy with a girl. If you are, stoics can find that medium where they don't feel the need to just dwell on one individual for hours and hours and hours and hours on end, because they have no control over what that individual is going to do.
The big difference, like when you're infatuated with someone, the big difference, just throwing out, infatuation and love. The biggest thing, infatuation, someone is amazing.
Right.
They have no faults. Love, they have faults, but I love them despite those.
Right.
That's a part of them, and if I love them, then I love the faults as well.
Obsessive compulsive disorder. And now I've still got a little touch of this, but we
all kind of do in a way.
Right. It's you know, we're all just a little bit compulsive in certain instances, but it maintains mental stability. It can soothe those anxieties over not doing those rituals. The extreme introverts can use stoicism, you know, and I'm going to the extreme introverts. It can help with them socializing. It can actually get them out of that bubble. Now, do you have anything else to add?
To what?
Okay, gotcha. To the suicides. The very suicidal individuals, whenever they feel like, whenever they feel like they're at the end of the rope. Now, this is the most extreme case. This was what Seneca was pointing to. Stoicism aids in one's perception of a dismal existence. It can actually, you know, kind of allow you to have, like we were talking about, confidence in that it will get better. How to become stoic. Prayer, number one. I would always advise prayer in every single situation. Meditation and prayer are a bit different. Prayer, you're speaking to God. Meditation, you're just kind of thinking on your surroundings. You're trying to get perspective.
Like if you have a situation come up and you try and remember what verses would relate to this to give me wisdom on this.
Yeah, now that's more of meditation. You know, you can actually meditate before you pray. Reading, preferably the Bible. Okay, but other books to read, and if you have any dust, you can throw it on out there. Epictetus, I have read his brilliant work. Carnegie, you know more about Carnegie.
Dale Carnegie.
Yeah.
There was the book he put out in, I believe it was the 1930s, How to Win Friends and Influence Others.
Yeah.
In Carnegie's book, he has a good point where it says, the best conversationalists don't talk a whole lot.
A person's favorite word is their own name. A person's favorite topic to talk about is themselves. You know, so we're very self-centered individuals. Yeah. But if you step outside of that, you'll start seeing conversations be able to really blossom. Yeah. Because when you talk, you don't learn anything. Because everything that you're saying, you've already learned. Listening to positive, soothing music can also do it. And this is the top level of Stoicism. Now I'm just trying to tell you how to kind of get into a peaceful mindset. Stoics are very, very deep. And we're about to get into that. Soothing music, I like Bach, Vivaldi, Beethoven. Now that's the deep music. But I also like David Crowder, Max Richter. Beautiful, beautiful. They're more compositions than music. But very beautiful. Watching positive movies, not horror flicks, not killing everybody,
not chaos,
not absolute destruction, because that gets into your subconscious. Watch my video Gateway to the Soul, and you'll actually hear more about that, and it stays there. You really can't kick it out. It's like a bullet. Remember the toothpaste? You can't put that back in. Once it's in, it's in.
Well, you know, my pastor has said many, many, many times, we are programmed to receive. We are sponges. You know, if you were going to clean your dishes, you wouldn't fill your sponge with mud, would you?
Right, right.
You know,
That's a good point.
so whatever you want to come out is what you better put in.
Absolutely. I have to ask you about this since we're on the topic of movies. What do you think about love stories? I'm just curious. Do you think love stories are healthy to watch?
No.
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 What is the reason?
I don't think that romantic comedies
The Notebook?
or
You
no.
don't think The Notebook is a classic? My gosh, it is a classic. Ryan Gosling, man.
Great actor.
Rachel McAdams, yeah.
Great
these
actor.
are awesome, yeah.
You know, Rich McAdams,
Yeah.
wonderful actress. I don't like love stories because they fill us with these unreal expectations that love is going to be amazing all the time.
But their love was not amazing all the time. They went through trials, tribulations. It was terrible. Oh,
And
do we have tissue?
if you are not a better person with the relationship, then get out of it.
Right.
You know, and by all means, if you're in a relationship, try and work on it.
Yeah.
Because no one is the best they can be alone. No one is. Because we can't find our own faults if we don't know it's a fault.
Yeah, I remember someone that I know, not mentioning any names because she watches these, but I will say she's just very, very close member of the family. And but anyway, she had a complaint about her then husband. Not getting into this, but she had a complaint about how he was so skinny, and he was, you know, he's really tall, but he was so skinny, you know, it's like cuddling a bone at night or something like that. Anyway, I kind of like the guy, but anyway, that until she left him. Anyway, but she had a complaint. She went to my dad and she told him about, you know, he's been so bony, and my dad looked at her and he said, well, maybe he sees flaws in you too. You know, hey, I mean, you know, a lot of our problem is that we don't see ourselves. You know, it's so easy to see others' flaws until we get that mirror. Well, we don't see ourselves. Have you noticed that you're always with you, but you never see you?
I like that.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's just amazing to me. I mean, just how you walk everywhere. You never have escaped this body. I have never actually seen, I don't know if I'm in a dream or not because I've never seen it, but yeah, I see something. Big nose. Anyway, okay. All right.
But no, touching on that.
Go ahead.
Stoicism would help in this situation because when you criticize someone for their flaws, what are you doing?
Right.
You're tearing them down, and if they're lower, you're higher.
Right.
Look at what they did correctly
Right.
and emphasize on that. And the reason that you do that is because when you look at someone and say, hey, you know, you executed that layup. It was perfect. It was flawless.
Right.
Did happen to be in the opponent's basket.
Right.
But that was a flawless layup.
It was a flawless, yeah.
And they're going to go, oh, all right, he thinks I did a great layup.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't the wrong one. I'll pay more attention.
Right.
But you've built them up
That's true.
as well in the form they used. Look, focus on the positives of the situation. They might have done something wrong, but they did it perfect.
Yeah, and there's a profound meaning in that, though. It's usually if you're willing to break somebody's spirit over a layup, then your priorities are off.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? What you're doing by not bashing them over that is you're saying in yourself, they're more important than that little net and this ball right here. You see what I'm saying? I mean, yeah, your priorities are right on with saying that. Absolutely.
And most people will actually recognize their own faults.
Right.
and they'll take it as a huge courtesy to them that you don't bring it to
That
them.
you didn't bring it. Listening to positive and engaging speakers or preachers like us, you're doing that right now. Congratulations, that's the first step. Anyway, I would recommend Leonard Ravenhill, King of Kings Radio. I even like Louder with Crowder, man. I love Louder. Now, he's a bit eccentric, so you may not want to, but I had to throw him on in. Jordan Peterson, he's also a really good speaker. Enjoy nature. Don't procrastinate. Don't be lazy. That's a big one. Exercise. Play sports. Work out. These things fight boredom as well. But it also helps with your physical appearance.
Actually, when your body's healthier, when you're actually in shape, your mood changes. It's not always from having someone say, "Oh, you look great."
Right.
It's scientific fact that when you're healthier from working out or doing these things, your emotional health increases.
Eating healthy. I mean, we've talked all kinds about this. Not fast food or high sugar substances like candy, sodas. Natural filling foods, corn, beans, potatoes, whole wheat bread, brown bread instead of white, very important, etc. Be goal-oriented. Make a schedule. Start a journal or a diary. And this isn't just to start one, okay? This has different implications. Whenever you write it down, write the pros and the cons of your day. That way you can bring them out and you can see them. There's something about seeing things written on paper, especially pertaining to you.
Write down where things affected you emotionally, where you feel that you let things get to you. Because you can actually look back and look at those situations and say, okay, how can I look at that situation differently?
Right.
If you have a coworker that just upsets you severely, you can say, okay, how should I have looked at that? And you can have that in your mindset next time that coworker or another creates the same situation.
Yeah, because everything is fairly redundant. People, they're fairly methodic with how that they go about living. You'll notice that people don't generally like to get great changes thrown inside of their day. So if you begin to notice a problem and it's a redundant, persistent problem, then you just focus on it. If you focus on that thing enough, you'll start seeing a weakness in it. And then you'd be amazed at the power of ignoring just things, just people, just ignoring problems. Just ignore them. Try not to feed that flame, because a flame dies out eventually. Negative outlook is subjective. You have to actually choose to be negative. Because really, with logic, you're neutral. You don't have to go up or down on the scale. You're just, hey, this is as it is. That's it. Anxiety is usually brought upon someone by over-analyzing.
Oh, yeah.
By looking at something. And I'm talking about with people, what are they thinking? How are they, are they going to text me? Are they going to call me?
How are we going to get the car fixed?
Right,
How are we going to make the house payment?
am I going to live next week? Have I got cancer? It's all this over-analyzation, and Stoics just learned that even in the worst-case scenario, things will just happen. Pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. Don't be prideful. It's a big, big thing. Pride. That is probably the worst of sins, if you could say that. Satan, he was built up with pride in the very beginning.
As far as we know, that's the first sin.
Yeah, the very first sin was pride. Be confident, but don't be prideful. The difference in between confidence and prideful, or an ego, if you will, being an egomaniac, is it was illustrated really, really well today. It's not an ego. To be confident is not your ego. It's more likened to not getting discouraged when you fail due to seeing victory in the future. You get back up off your feet. That's confidence. An ego says, well, I'll never have to get up off my feet. I'll never fall. Now that's pride. I'll never lose. And do not concern yourself with others' business. Mind your own business. That's a pretty big one. If you'd be amazed how peaceful that you can become if you just mind your own business. Stop wanting to gossip and talk about it. It's all right to show concern for others, but don't pry into everybody's business.
The difference between constructive criticism and criticism
Right.
is the same difference between gossip and spreading a word if someone needs help in
Right.
some situation.
Absolutely. Learn to laugh. Abraham Lincoln once said, "With the fearful strain that is on me night and day, if I did not laugh, I should die." Okay, so laughter is also important. Okay, a stoic isn't necessarily a boring, dull individual. Now, some of them appear that way, but I guarantee they're laughing at like a butterfly or something in the woods like later on. I mean, so stoics are not boring. Remember compliments. It's very important. Do remember compliments. Don't let your validation come from them necessarily. I mean, you get your validation from God and your connection with a higher power, your maker. But forget insults. Just forget the insults. What good has insults? Now, I'm not talking about constructive criticism like you talked about, but what good has any insult ever done for you? None. I've never had an insult actually help me. It always brings about anxiety, regret, dread, misery, loneliness. I mean, turn into a complete neurotic. Persistent regret is useless. Persistent regret is, what good are you?
You can't change what happened.
That's what it is.
The only thing you can do is learn from it, and in future instances, change something
and grow from it.
Thank you.
Mind your own company, not your business, but mind your company. Who you hang out with, who do you associate with. Other Stoics are really good, but they're very few and far between, really. Only associate with disciplined, optimistic, and or grounded individuals. Forgive, okay? Forgive. Now, I'm not telling you to forget. It's so difficult to forget. Time usually helps me to forget something. And that's just because I grow indifferent to it. But to forgive, I can forgive. Realize your surroundings. This one is so pivotal. This one is so important. I did this today. I put this into action. Had a bit of anxiety. I had to go out. And I remember I started to grow a bit anxious about that. Realize that you are where you are right then. Mm-hmm. You are right there. You are not in a hostile environment. There is no sense in you getting tore up over something that's unseen, something that will probably never happen, something that it will never manifest into reality outside of your little thoughts. So what good is it doing? Once that I stopped and I just started looking around and I realized where I was again, it brought me right back down and that peace come over me. Learn yourself. We was talking about this. This kind of goes with the diary and the journal aspect. Learn yourself, but this is to a deeper extent. If you actually go to a psych test and you start to take these psyche tests, they don't necessarily have to be 100% accurate. They don't have to describe you, but if they get kind of close, even if they get way off in one or two aspects of your psyche, even if they're not very good tests, you'll start to notice that they're telling you that this is how you are. And then you can judge, well, am I like that? Am I not like that? Do I want to be like that? It'll present it to you. You finally get to see what's inside that you haven't seen, that you just felt. Okay? It's one thing to have cancer, and it's another thing to have it torn out of you and look at it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, because then it becomes more real. Mm-hmm. It's not something that's, this hideous boogeyman monster. You actually get to look at it and say, this is it? This is what was killing me the entire time? I was dying from this? So whenever you get it presented to you and your soul gets to see it, instead of just your body feeling it, it really starts to allow you to grow from that, and then you can begin to emphasize the good aspects.
The old saying, knowledge is power. The more you know about yourself and your capabilities, your the things you excel at, the things you lack in. The more you know that, the more confidence you have in yourself. The more confidence you have, the more stoic you're able to be.
Right.
Because when a situation comes up, you have the capability of saying, I can handle that situation.
Right. Focus on what you can control. That's a big one. There's a lot of things outside of your control. All right? But focus on what you can control. Because then you can begin to manipulate that into, or just direct it, if you will, into the way that will most benefit you, lead you into peace. And say no. Learn how to say no. Okay? This is very, very crucial.
I'd actually had a loan with an establishment, and I had a payment come due.
Yeah, I love this.
And it was, I believe it was $100. And I went into the office, and I talked to the manager of the office, and I said, I'm sorry, I don't have it. They said, well, we got to have it.
Right.
And I said, well, I understand that, but I don't have it.
Right.
And they said, but we got to have it. And I said, okay. I said, what's worst case scenario?
Right.
You know, I don't have this payment.
Yeah.
And she said,
Like
well,
a Stoic, you were looking at the worst case.
well, I was looking at it, realistically and
Logically.
and logically. And I said, well, what's going to happen? She said, it'll affect your credit. And I said, well, I understand that. My credit's kind of in the hole at the moment, so that doesn't bother me. It's not going. You can't beat a dead horse.
Burn the bones,
And I said, well, that's done for at the moment anyway. So she said, well, my bosses, they want me to have it. And I said, well, I understand that, but I don't have it. She said, is there anyone you could borrow it from? I said, no, there's no one I can borrow it from. She's like, well, we got to have it. And I said, I understand, but I don't have it.
I'm hearing every word.
Yes. And in that situation, I looked at the options, and I said, that's not an option.
Right.
So rather than going, oh, what am I going to do? How can I do this? I realized there was no chance for it.
Right.
So I stopped having anxiety over it.
Yeah. You just
there's-
accepted what it was.
You have to look at what you control and what you can't.
Yeah. Which goes into my next point. Failure is natural, and accept your flaws.
Mm-hmm.
This is about things that you can't control. Emphasize your good qualities. If you know the good things about you, then emphasize them. Practice self-restraint.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of the discipline that rolls right into confidence and whatnot. I begin to speak only when I'm certain what I'll say isn't better left unsaid. Talk little, say a lot. Okay, so make your words matter. Let things go. Be content. Don't compare yourself to others. That's actually pretty important. Don't compare yourself to others. What's the point, right? I want to be like Shaquille O'Neal, who's 7 foot tall and black. It's really illogical. That's not stoic. Okay, but
I think the biggest thing that actually being a Christian stoic means is being stoic is you have a picture of the big picture.
right.
You realize the small things don't matter in the big picture. Now, being a Christian stoic, you realize the big picture is the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, furthering God's kingdom,
Right.
and finding your place in God's will, spreading the word of Jesus.
This is the difference between the old Stoic and our Stoic.
Yes, the reason that we can have peace as Christians is because we know our God.
Right.
You're no longer a victim of the devil attacking you. Now you look at it as, God, what are you trying to teach me? And what do I need to learn so this doesn't happen again?
Right.
And it's all in your perspective.
Got a peace.